Oh yeah, guys, we're back. We're here. We got Jay Parker, the man and the place to be, coming up in just no time at all. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, we have today the most amazing guy ever. His name is Jay Parker. He's helped me out in more ways than one, explaining certain things to me, telling me where to find them. And he's just a wealth of knowledge. Here he is. Jay, are you here?
Yes, I am, Ron.
Great. Good to hear you here.
Thank you very much for having me.
I just introduced a little bit of what I know about you, but there's so much more. You're literally a prism of knowledge. You have so much that you've put into this. So many things that people can only gather with the origins that you've had. What can you tell us, if anything, about, well, people like the ones that seem to be in total control of the system, the Oligarchs of America, some have called them?
Well, right. Everybody uses the term they, but essentially, since the Banking Act of 1871, where America was no longer a constitutional republic, but was made into a United States of America Incorporated, we have, basically seen the slow erosion of our freedom. And then, of course, in 1913, with the income tax and the Federal Reserve being established, I would say we the people totally lost all power. And we've been going down the drain ever since. And now America is just simply a piggy bank for the corruption overseas. And basically, we fight these proxy wars for the Vatican and for the Queen of England. And the advent of Donald Trump is throwing a monkey wrench into all of it. Their wonderful plan for a new world order of a microchip population of drones. We'll see what happens, Ryan, but I think it's a good time to be alive because we're in the age of information, and to be ignorant is a choice. It's not something you have to stay in. And even though we all got indoctrinated by this culture, we can go on the web and we can do research and we can find out what's true still. Even though they're trying to grab a hold of the web and basically scrub every piece of truth that's on the web and shadow ban it and deplatform it, it's not going to work. The cat is out of the bag. Too many millions of people in this collective consciousness reality have woken up to reality. And we understand that we are ruled by trillionaires and billionaires, and our governments are nothing more than blackmailed and bought off puppets. And it's worldwide. That's why you see the yellow vests in France. That's why you see the five-star party in Italy and Brexit. People are waking up to the fact that they need to fight this New World Order system from coming in, because it's transhumanism and cradle-to-grave slavery. And the thing I teach now, Ryan, after 19 years of study, after I accidentally was triggered and I woke up from my MK Ultra mind control, I've been studying for 19 years, because one of the first things I asked myself was, how did this happen? How did my life get stolen from me? And I did the research. I recovered the memories of being in an Illuminati family. My father was ninth generation Illuminati. His family joined the Illuminati in the 1720s. And my mother claimed her Dark Occult heritage going back 3,000 years to the Amalekite people written about in the Bible. So, not a good family to grow up in. And I was raped and tortured, and I was put into the CIA MK-Ultra program by my parents. I believe that my father in 1958 was arrested for pedophilia, and given the opportunity, he had 3 young sons, and he moved to the Illuminati CIA village of Arden, Delaware. And I know I was placed in the CIA MK-Ultra program. I don't know if my brothers were. I know this from what my mother said to me. And it's all about the programmable state. The first 6 years of a human being's life, you were in a hypnagogic trance, and you have 2 brainwave patterns. And so you're basically hypnotized. You're partially in twilight consciousness, and your subconscious mind is being built, which then becomes the CPU for your life as an adult and runs 95% of your actions and decisions. So what the Dark Occult, after the cataclysm of 9600 BC and the destruction of the worldwide Atlantean culture, the pyramid culture, they figured that they would take over the civilized world, and they would develop religions that basically kept people in fear, and which makes them easily controllable, and ignorance, because we're basically the mushroom people. We're kept in the dark and we're fed BS. And it's been that way now since at least, several thousand BC. And everywhere, this cabal, and I call it the cult of Aton, same as Michael Tsarion. And basically, it's Molech, human sacrifice, pedophilia, and a corruption that is so evil, so anti-human. You have to say, like, when someone would go into a full-blown manifestation in front of me when I was a kid, they'd let their devil spirit out, so to speak. You just look at them, and whatever consciousness was taking them over, it was certainly not anything from this planet. Probably another dimension. So we have a situation now where we have millions of people that have woken up. We have millions of people now who are actually becoming aware of themselves. They know themselves. And on the ancient mystery schools that were shut down by the Catholic Church after 325 AD, the Council of Nicaea, they had a sign on most of them, was know thyself. And if you know your physiology, psychology, and spirituality, you know how to operate the vehicle that is your mind and body in this world. So if you take that information about reality and how to function properly in this place, this 52 waveform of nearly infinite density and infinite energy, and that's according to Nassim Haramein, and he's actually proven it. He's a physicist that you should look at his work. He's the Resonance Foundation in Hawaii, and he's on YouTube, Nassim Haramein. And we're all connected. It's a subconscious virtual reality. All of our subconsciouses are knit together through micro, I guess, wormholes, you could call it, but we're knit together, and that 40 million bits of information transfer into the energetic field, the divine field, from your subconscious, and 40 bits of information come from your conscious mind. And that's all from 7.5 billion people. That information pours into the morphogenic field, and the morphogenic field creates this reality. So, in actuality, what we are as human beings is we are the ears and eyes of the divine field. We are the feedback loop. So the divine field sees what is going on in its creation. And if you look at ancient scriptures and philosophy, you'll find that every avatar that's ever come here says that if you go within, you will succeed in everything you desire, spiritually, financially, emotionally. If you go along with the culture, you'll waste your life. And right now, all I study is the work of Dr. Bruce Lipton, Dr. Joe Dispenza. I think as far as consciousness goes, as far as learning how to play the game of life, which is short grays, the set of reticuli, called the miracle game. Well, if you're going to play a game, you need to know the rules. You need to know what's up and what's down. Well, the Dark Occult keep that kind of information away from people, except themselves, and that gives them a huge power differential. So, in our indoctrination system, our schooling, people are not taught to critically think. People are taught to go along to get along, not rock the boat, not ask questions, and basically they have no morality. They have no ethics. Mm-hmm. You would wonder that after it was found out that the Iraq War in 2003 was based on lies perpetrated by the media and built up by the intelligence agencies and George W. Bush, that all hell would break loose. That entire war was founded on a conspiracy of lies. No, nothing has happened. And this is because we have a media that is wholly controlled by the CIA. Mm-hmm. And the deep state killed Kennedy, both brothers, killed Malcolm X, killed Martin Luther King. And that renaissance of care, which organically the society needed to go through, never happened. And so I'd say the bad guys won.
Right.
I mean, you get to a point where if you look around at the situation we're in right now, there is no rule of law in Washington. People like Hillary Clinton have 120 corpses attached to her, and you can go to Clinton body count and take a look. I don't know anybody, even in the Illuminati, that have 120 corpses attached to them.
That we know of.
If you know, that we know of. I mean, my father was a mass murderer. You know, he probably killed in sacrifice rituals and on his own. You know, he might have killed several dozen people. Mm-hmm. But he's nothing compared to the Clintons.
you know, it bears repeating that a lot of the masses don't buy the fact that these dark adepts exist and that witchcraft is involved. And, for me, I had to actually order the book Agenda 21 by the United Nations. And, I went to Barnes & Noble. I went to multiple places. Nobody really wanted to sell it to me. Eventually, Barnes & Noble did. They ordered it, asked me why I wanted it, and when I got it and read the whole thing, it's harmonious with all of the worst things you could ever imagine. The benefit is going to exactly the opposite of what you would assume. There's obviously forces at hand, and you start to notice that population is an issue. Population is a big issue, and when I noticed that some of these elites in the top organizations, let's say, and playing devil's advocate, which I hate to do, of course everyone believes they should be, in positions of power. But long story short, these individuals in these circle-making decisions of power, where it's basically extreme elitism, I'm noticing that there is a lot of occult ritual practice. And you mentioned Arden, Delaware. This is something that kind of deeply tied me to you, Jay, just because I'm very inquisitive. And to be completely honest, I went into a neighborhood of which you mentioned, and I was literally, I just got chased right out. I didn't pull my car over to a legal place to park for more than just a few seconds before somebody was saying, "Move along, buddy." And that's all it took for me. So I know other people need a lot more proof, and they have these hindering thoughts that you speak of, which are programmed into us by the media corporations, which, for all intents and purposes, I remember when news media, to be a reporter wasn't a good thing. You were out there, you were on the edge, because you were giving both sides of the story, and that's just not the case anymore.
No, it's not. The New World Order system, of course, is something they've been working for. The oligarchs, the royalty, the bankers in Europe. They've been working for this global one world government for hundreds of years. Codex Alimentarius and Agenda 21 were written 40 years ago, 50 years ago, and they're being implemented now. They have think tanks like the Rand Corporation, Carnegie Mellon Institute, Ford Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation. They do this social engineering. You can learn about it by reading a book on Tavistock Institute for Human Relations by Dr. John Coleman. I believe that's out of print right now, but Daniel Estelin has done a recent work on it. And the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, David Bowie, they were all Tavistock Institute of Human Relations puppet bands. And it's basically, we're in a socially engineered society. So your 9-to-5 mainstream dribble society is totally manipulated by the banking trillionaires and billionaires. And, this whole transgender and gender fluidity was spoken about back in the 70s at conferences of where the elite wanted to take the human race. Mm-hmm. And basically, if they can destroy Western society with its Magna Carta and its American Declaration of Independence, they can produce the mindless socialist drones that they want. People need to know George's Guidestones. Just look it up and read what it says. The reason that the Dark Occult, which make up 12 to 15% of the world population, and my mother told me in '63 that 12% of the American population was Dark Occult adherents to Molech. Now, if you go to Bohemian Grove once a year, you see a meeting of politicians, top-ranked politicians, presidents, prime ministers, CEOs of major international corporations. And they go and they have a mock human sacrifice in front of a 40-foot owl idol. But, don't worry, they're only mocking a human sacrifice. Mm-hmm. I'm still waiting for my neighbors and I to get together and have a street fair, where we close off our block and we have a mock human sacrifice. It's not going to happen.
Right. And
what I'm saying is people are willfully in denial about this. Willfully in denial. Leo Zagani, who was in the Illuminati, he's an Italian. Fiona Barrett, who's a MK Ultra sufferer in Australia. Every person I know who's speaking out against this Dark Occult system says that 10 to 15% of the world population is Dark Occult, and they've seized control of all the major levers of social and political power in the world. And this is what Trump is up against right now. I've never seen in my lifetime the media go after a president like they're going after Donald Trump. Whoever is in control of him, it's not their club. It's not their faction.
No.
So he's definitely, I don't know who's pulling his strings, but he's definitely a existential threat to them.
He's quite literally a trump card. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And we're seeing right now with William Barr and are they going to prosecute the people involved in the treason to get Donald Trump out of office? And Obama spied on 20 million people with the Hammer program, all conservatives. He was looking for political dirt, and this is all illegal, and that's why they could not afford to let Trump win the election, because if somebody goes in and cleans up the FBI and the Department of Justice and starts to implement the rule of law, these people will be in jail. So their coup attempt against Trump failed. They were figuring by pressuring him, he would do a Nixon and break the law, and even though he had done nothing wrong, they would get him on some kind of cover-up or some kind of abuse of power. Mm-hmm. And he just sat there and took it. And now all the cards are in his hand, and we're just waiting to see if the rule of law is going to be applied.
And it does. It gets super sticky when you get up to these power levels like you're speaking of. It gets super sticky. Like you said, they lost power, and I'm talking about the extreme left, and they had everything in line, put forth. It was all, areas of complete control, restricted access only to them, and authorized to do whatever they needed to do, and yet they still somehow, like you said, I think there's so much taking place from even all over the place, all kinds of perspectives, whether or not you believe in magic. We have this interesting, meme magic going on with Egyptian frogs involved, and the sobering reality is that we're tampering with. I mean, the numerology there's divine aspects of this that seem to just cut right through the muck, like you're talking about, Jay. Like the muck is just.
There is a Ryan. There is a man by the name of Ian Lex Lungold, and he studied the Mayan cosmology and did a presentation for 3 hours called "The Condor Goes North." And Ian Lex Lungold, "The Condor Goes North," explained the 8-step Mayan pyramid in relation to mankind and the world's evolution. And in December 21st, 2012, mankind was supposed to reach the top of the pyramid and go into cosmic consciousness. Well, that didn't happen. But let me say this. I agree with Greg Braden that spiritually the cell door to humanity's mental slavery has been opened, unlocked. But we're still sitting on the bed in the cell. We have to actually do some work on ourselves, get up, and actually walk out the door. That's going to require some effort on our part. The 2012 is encoded mathematically in the Giza Plateau. 2012, December 21st, is encoded in the mathematics of the Giza Plateau, as found out by Edward Nightingale, who's written a book about the Giza Grail template. And all the cosmology, so much mathematics about the earth and about nature are incorporated. Using computer-aided design, you can find these information out. And Edward Nightingale spent 16 years decoding the Giza Plateau mathematics. Every pyramid, everything like the Sphinx, the Wall of the Crow, the causeways, everything is there, set up perfectly to, when deciphered and analyzed, give a incredible amount of cosmological and mathematical information about everything in this world. And we know, if we're honest with ourselves, because of the water erosion on the Sphinx enclosure, that I agree with John Anthony West and Robert Schoch. He hedges this, but it's obvious that because of the water erosion on the limestone enclosure and the weather on the Giza Plateau, that it's pre-10,000 BC structure. And I say that, along with Anthony West, that it's probably going back another great year, which is going a full circle around the zodiac, which is roughly 26,000 years. So actually, they're putting a message. I want you to fathom this. At least 35,000 BC, they're encoding a message to the future in pyramids and sphinxes of stone to tell people this is important. It's not going to happen for another 35,000 years, but we want you to know. We know that it's coming. And what we're seeing right now is the Dark Occult controllers and masters are freaking out because Donald Trump is president and he's getting rid of all the UN regulations in America. And he's reasserting American sovereignty, and this is totally against the globalist agenda.
He's a bit of a monkey wrench, isn't he? He's a bit of a monkey wrench in the system.
Well, they've tried to kill him, according to Dr. David Janda, 12 times.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a blowback coup going on with Trump, supposedly from people inside White Hats, inside the Pentagon, and the intelligence agencies. And what we're witnessing is simply a fight for control of the federal government between the communists and Nazis, which are totally corrupt, and the patriots.
And the Nazis are usually, historically involved with the most high-tech stuff, everything from UFOs to science itself.
Well, if you look at the end of World War II, both the Soviet Union and America took in thousands of Nazis, scientists, government officials, intelligence officers, and allowed them into the deepest areas of their government. The National Security Act of 1947, which made the CIA and the NSA, where that law was written by Nazi General Richard Gehlen. And Joseph P. Farrell has written several books about the post-war Nazis. And if you don't know the work of Joseph P. Farrell, GizaDeathStar.com, and take a look at over 20 books he's written about high physics, Nazi science, corruption, banking. He's a genius that's trying to get the word out. And so we have this situation right now where 11%, 12% to 15% of America is generational mind-controlled dark occult. And they indoctrinate through the school system and the corrupt religion most people not to fight the power, not to do anything but keep their heads down, work hard, and rinse and repeat.
Right.
Go nowhere. But there's a revolution in consciousness because work of Dr. Bruce Lipton, epigenetics, Dr. Joe Dispenza, meditation, and connecting with the divine consciousness. If you go to Dr. Joe Dispenza YouTube channel, and that's with a Z, not an S, Dispenza, there are over 350 testimonials by people who are doing his meditations and his, shall we call it, shadow work. And this is deprogramming from the enculturalization program that was given to you by the Dark Occult in the formative years 1 through 6, 1 through 7, when you were in a hypnagogic state and your subconscious was being built. Your subconscious runs 95% of your life. Your conscious mind, the 40 bits a second, is really, it's just mindless chatter. It has no power in a consensus reality. It's the 40 million bits of information from your subconscious. So if your subconscious is misprogrammed, you're not going to get the right results. So in Dr. Joe Dispenza's YouTube channel, there's over 350 video testimonials by people who have reconnected to the divine source by turning down the archontic mind parasite that was given to them and focusing on the divine field and divine consciousness. And people are getting cured of cancer, all kinds of incurable diseases, Miracles are happening financially, emotionally. It's just simply mind-blowing. And they have done brain mapping with Heart Math Institute, Joe Dispenza's people, for about 20 years while people meditate. And they found out that if you can get into a zero.1 hertz brainwave pattern, you can connect with the divine intelligence. And then all bets are off, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And we were built, and you have to go into goddess mythology, but we were built to rid the universe of the corruption of the archons, whether reptilian, short grays, tall grays, whatever. One of the statements by the goddess Sophia was simply, I'm going to build my Anthropos and he's going to defeat you. My glowing Anthropos will defeat you. Talking to the archonic entities in the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And so she picked a fight with them, and they came and they stomped us into the curb. But now the All-Father, the actual God beyond culture, is actually one-on-one getting involved with people. And they're hooking up with that level of frequency and energy and broadcasting that into the field. And so all I have to say is all bets are off.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So you know, we'll know in the next year whether Trump is a shill or whether he's genuine patriot.
Correct.
But it's looking right now with the fact that the communists do not stop going after him, that they know that they have a real threat on their hands.
And that's what is so, like, fascinating as I watch the media and I see him, you know, over at Buckingham Palace with the Queen. I realize how super sticky it gets up in those levels of power because people are talking about it from a bipartisan perspective. And I'm noticing at that level, I think power just recognizes power. And it's obvious that the Queen is recognizing power when she's saying some of the comments that she's saying.
Well, the reason that she's being nice to Donald Trump and paid him that compliment, if it is a compliment, that, you know, he could be my son, is basically she knows that the British were deeply involved in the coup d'etat by the deep state against Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And it could get really ugly for Britain.
Right.
So she's throwing the dog a bone.
Yes.
She's laying down with her legs up in the air, with her belly.
Rub my belly,
You know?
right?
Like I surrender.
Correct.
You won't have a problem from me, which don't believe it.
No,
But
an interesting.
But I will say this, that we'll know by next spring if the Department of Justice is going to do any real work on the criminality that has been running our government since 1980. I mean, when they shot Reagan, George Herbert Walker Bush literally took over the Reagan administration. And Reagan acted like he was the president and thought he was, but it was Bush and Cheney and Rumsfeld that were actually running the Reagan administration.
That I couldn't agree more.
So we're looking at, 35 years of Clinton-Bush cabal, Illuminati control of the White House. And so after Obama, most people were like, oh, we're not going back to the Bush-Clinton cabal. And I'm talking about people that actually know a thing or two. And instead of sitting back and doing nothing, millions of people voted for the first time in 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they had rigged the election that in the vote tabulators, Hillary Clinton would go in on election night and switch the vote. Well, the White Hats inside the intelligence agencies shut Clinton's people out of the election tabulators, except for 5 states out west. And so she wasn't able to flip the vote, and so she lost.
Interesting. Yeah, there's a definite establishment that had been achieving everything in which they put time into, and now it seems that the methodology is based on a complete different thought pattern, completely generated by the other side. So it's obvious that the objective that the left had is they're losing control. It almost seems like at this point I don't really know what they're doing, and I don't think they know what they're doing.
Well, other than making fools out of themselves, they're not doing much right now.
Right, and I try not to be, on either side, but they're projecting kind of like you said, foolishness. Like I don't know.
Well, I mean, the Green New Deal. Oh, $90 trillion. When you look at the debt worldwide is getting close to $300 trillion. This entire economic model worldwide could collapse at any moment.
Sure.
And that's what they're doing is they tried to raise interest rate and get back to a normal banking system. And the economies throughout the world are so weak due to the corruption that they can't stand proper interest rates. They can't stand a tightening of credit at all.
No.
Because the debt is just too high. The average American is swimming in a sea of debt.
That's right.
And, we have all these college graduates, millennials, that have over $100,000 in student loans, and they can't even get a job. So,
no, they're one EMP pulse away from having zero skills at all.
Well, they really don't have any skill. I mean, the dumbing down of America started in the 1980s. 1983, the United States under Reagan signed an accord with the Soviet Union to make the American education system the same as in the Soviet Union. And Charlotte Iserby talks about this in the deliberate dumbing down of America. And John Taylor Gatto has written some great books about the American educational system also. But essentially, because of the Georgia Guidestones, and, basically says that the human race will be brought down to a level of 500 million people worldwide and kept there.
Mm-hmm.
Just enough people to clean the toilets and polish the yachts.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm saying is the reason that these dark occult billionaires and trillionaires are so anti-human is every human being, the most powerful receiver of information and broadcaster of frequency and information on the planet is the human being. And if people get the idea that they're in a simulation, so to speak, which they are, they're in a collective consciousness world,
mm-hmm.
and that each human being is very, very powerful. I mean, we have a conservative estimate by Dr. Bruce Lipton in his talks, 50 trillion cells. If you have 50 trillion cells and each cell has 1.4 volts, the human being is a 70 trillion volt entity.
Yes. When I see these situations occur of spontaneous combustion and people say that's not possible, I think I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often. And
well, it does happen, and the thing is, what I want to say is, if you have 70 trillion volts and you learn through meditation to develop a one-on-one relationship with the infinite consciousness of the divine field, of the morphogenic field, which is love and joy, no judging, just love and creativity and all the good things. When you have the power to sustain every molecule in position, which is what the divine field is doing in this reality, it's the creator against the created. So I even at 5 years old, in the room full of axe murdering pedophiles, I said to them, in love, I said, what you're doing is crazy. You're going against nature and God. You can't succeed in this. It's not going to go well for you. And they looked at me like, oh my God, what is this kid? And I just want to say that the best thing you can do for yourself is get into the YouTube work of Dr. Bruce Lipton and Dr. Joe Dispenza, and get some of Joe Dispenza, especially Joe Dispenza, and learn about meditating to connect with the divine field for yourself. Learn about your own physiology and spirituality. Joe Dispenza has some excellent books. How to Break the Habit of Being Yourself, You Are the Placebo, and Becoming Supernatural, where he shows you how to play the quote-unquote miracle game. And Dr. Bruce Lipton, his seminal work, Biology of Belief, is a must-read by every person, because what you need to understand in this world is you are a very programmable species. And that's what the first artificial intelligence robot, Sophia, that was her name. She was given citizenship in Saudi Arabia. They introduced herself. The first thing out of her mouth was, you are a very programmable species. And if you know anything about the Illuminati Dark Occult, you'll know they love to tell you the truth and shove it right in your face, like, ha, ha, ha.
Yep.
And, but people, since 9/11, since the advent of the alternative media, people have been able to analyze and disseminate truth about 9/11, about Sandy Hook, about Boston bombing, about the Iraq wars, about Libya. And even though there are 12 to 15% of dedicated dark occult in this world, they were programmed droids, and they spend most of their lives in the R complex of the brain, which is the lower frequency flight or fight modality of the human being. Now, we're getting to the point where people are expanding their awareness and deprogramming from the archontic subconscious mind parasite. And they're going into the limbic brain, which is emotion, and they're going into the neocortex, which is creative, higher spirituality. And they're broadcasting into the field a higher frequency. And if you know anything about frequency, higher frequencies will overpower lower frequencies every time.
Yeah.
So that one of the reasons they want to get people down to 500 million is every human being, if they realize that they were connected to divine source, or that they could connect to divine source. Divine source, the God beyond culture, who is love, is keeping all this running 24/7. The entire universe, every galaxy, every dimension, keeps it up and running perfectly. That's real power. Now, we are the interface between that consciousness and 3D reality. When we find out that our true purpose in the universe is to be the high priests and priestesses of the divine field that is love, it's game, set, and match.
Amen. That's amazing. It's so true. And I know that you are involved with so much.
Work, Ryan.
Yeah.
I mean, I do EFT, emotional freedom technique.
Mm-hmm.
I do meditation, and I've reintegrated my consciousness from having 7 different altars. And if you don't know about EFT, you have to. You have to put that in your toolbox, because nothing reprograms the subconscious better than EFT.
Mm-hmm.
And you can throw bad beliefs out, like the belief in the blind belief in authority, and put truth as the only authority. So you can go in, take the trash out, and put good stuff in to your subconscious through EFT. And there's some great books on EFT written by Carl Dawson, EFT Matrix Reimprinting, and Change Your Beliefs and Change Your Life by Carl Dawson. And Carl Dawson is the best EFT coach in the world today. I mean, Gary Craig is awesome, and you can find him on the web. You can also find Brad Yates on the web doing tapping videos that you can tap along with Brad if you're not in the mood to do it yourself. But the stuff is real. People have healed themselves from diseases. People have, with just 1 minute of matrix reimprinting tapping, a woman healed herself of manic depression that she suffered from for 20 years. And it never came back. So we're talking about a very powerful energetic modality in the energy psychology field. If you don't know about this, it's like Bruce Lipton or Joe Dispenza's work. In this situation that we find ourselves in as human beings, we personally cannot take down Goliath. But what we can do, we can personally stop energetically supporting Goliath. And that means going into our subconscious and doing the shadow work and reprogramming the subconscious, so our broadcast out of our subconscious minds into the collective consciousness field is a broadcast of freedom, of rights, of care for one another. It's a broadcast of peace. And all I got to say is I have my website, thecenterpath.weebly.com. There's lots of videos, interviews that I've given, and learning section with a lot of stuff dealing with consciousness. Because the reason that the Dark Occult attacked their children and raped them and put them through horrific blood rituals in the first 7 years of life is to warp the synaptic pathways and to destroy the subconscious. So, if the Dark Occult who run this world are attacking their children in the subconscious, don't you think the subconscious is where it's at?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I'm saying you have to read the book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself and The Biology of Belief. But my website has got a lot of good videos on it, both positive and negative. And there's in my new paradigm page, which features Greg Braden, Gary Craig with EFT, and Bruce Lipton, to name a few. There is a printout instruction for doing long-form EFT tapping. And all you have to do is go to my website and go to the new paradigm page and just look at the 7-minute video called Introduction to EFT. And watch that 7-minute video, and your mind will be blown about EFT. And as powerful as that video is, the work that Dr. Joe Dispenza is doing with HeartMath Institute and the brain mapping and finding out what works and what doesn't work and reconnecting with the God beyond culture and taking our birthright of power back. When 150 people got together with Dr. Emoto in Japan and circled a lake and blessed the lake and prayed over the lake and thanked the lake for its beauty and for its life-giving sustenance to the world, they did this consciousness experiment, and they took water samples before and after the people, through their intention of gratitude at the lake and thanking the lake, and the pollution levels went down 20%.
Amazing.
From just 150 people getting around a lake. They were able to change the actual levels of pollution in the lake. So we're quantum co-creators with the divine field that is creating all this reality, quote unquote. Every galaxy, every universe, every dimension is this consciousness that is love creating this. And there is a scripture in the older New Testament, I'm not sure, but it simply says, why is this going on? And it simply says, for the increase in God. Well, if we're the feedback loop and we're tied into God, the divine consciousness, and we're God's ears and eyes, we're sending that 40 million bits of information back to the Godhead every second. And it's learning experientially about all kinds of stuff about life. So it's basically the increase of God.
Right.
Now I want to say that, there's other scriptures in there. It says God's will is basically that everybody is happy, fulfilled, full of love unspeakable. Well, look at the programming of the programmable species. It's been programmed the opposite by a bunch of dark occultists that, as they say, they would rather rule in hell than serve in heaven. And that is the world situation that they have created. But blowback is coming.
Wow. Yeah, it is. I mean, I think, like you said, if every person made every effort to free themselves from that and progress spiritually, just imagine where we'd be.
Well, why did they develop these corrupt religions? To keep us from going within and seeking truth. I mean, basically, they put themselves, these high priests, rabbis, whatever, imams, put themselves in positions of power and said, I'll tell you about God. Well, it's supposed to be a one-on-one relationship between you and your creator. And it's individualized. I mean, the only religion for a human being should be truth. You know, and seeking knowledge and betterment should be the way of life. And there are people on this world now, because of the internet, the slaves have talked amongst themselves, and they may try to shadow ban and change the internet. It's not going to work. The cat is out of the bag. There's too much good information like EFT and Dr. Joe Dispenza's meditation, and it's spreading like wildfire. EFT is about 20 years old. Okay? Mm-hmm. And there are 10 million EFT professional practitioners. Okay? Now, you don't think that's too many in a 7.5 billion person planet, but I personally know people who are professionally trained at Reiki, which is another form of energy work. Mm-hmm. And they're certified in EFT, and they're like life coaches. And they make a living doing that, helping people get deprogrammed and reprogrammed in alignment and harmony with the divine field. God is not what the religions say it is. In fact, I would say it's the opposite. And all you have to do is go to Joe Dispenza YouTube, Dr. Joe Dispenza YouTube channel, mm-hmm. and look at the testimonies of these people. And if you don't like the person talking, you can tap on to the next testimonial. But after, get yourself a big bowl of popcorn and some iced tea, and spend a couple hours watching these. And you will see a thread of people who invested time in themselves, in their own consciousness. And then you will see the response of the universe to that effort. And it is astounding. And it's quantifiable, and it's repeatable, and it's something that's, if you do X, Y, and Z, you're going to get ABC. It's no like, well, I guess God doesn't really like me. There's no, well, I guess I don't really believe strong enough. The more time you spend focusing on the divine field in your life, the closer you get to having that energetic relationship and becoming a co-creator with the divine field.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's what I counsel people on SRA. I have 2 radio shows on Revolution Radio. People can email me. My email address is on my website, thecenterpath.weebly.com. Load of good information on that website. And if you have anything in this world that's more important than your consciousness and your consciousness growth, you're missing the boat. Nothing is happening with your job. Nothing is happening with your family, with your personal relationships by putting consciousness growth and healing number 1. Because when you change and make a commitment to the universe that numero uno, you're here to manifest the divine love of Creator. The universe is going to hear that. It's going to see your effort, and it's going to reward it based on its goodness, not yours. So,
love it.
Amazing testimonies at drjoedispenza.com. The best ones are in his books. Amazing stories of people that the situation some of these people are in, just horrible. Cancer, broke, widow with 2 young children, unable to work, and a year and a half later, after doing the meditations and the mind work, I would call it, because you have to grab a hold of your mind. You actually have to become disciplined in this life. Your thoughts are very powerful things, and you learn to control them because they activate emotions. Emotions are what the field reads. You've got to learn how to play the miracle game, and there's people teaching how.
I love it. Thank you so much, Jay. I know how busy you are, and I know that your technique and everything works. I just need to hit you up. I want to get one of those pyramids from you, but that'll have to be another time. Thank you for taking time out of your day. And
all right. Well, Ron, we'll do this again, and that's my general spiel today. And if you want to talk about specifics of the Dark Occult or banking or any number of things like suppressed technology, Tesla, we'll do a show on that.
I would love to, Jay. You're the best. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye. There we had it. The guy, the man with the plan, Jay, with techniques that involve the use of consciousness to achieve desired objectives. And it's something that is needed. I don't know what that particular noise was, but somebody has a phone in here. Anyway, definitely go to his website. Check that out. Go to the Center Path as well and look at that. And we hope to have him back and have more information on this stuff that is pretty amazing. Dark adepts in control of our reality. And it's a spooky thing. So until next time, thanks for tuning in and take care.